Welcome back to the Course Creation Incubator. I'm Gina Onativia, here to help you get your course done and out to market. Today, we're continuing our conversation about launching, about promoting your online course. Last week, we talked about 3 questions to ask before you start your promo, and if you haven't listened already, please go back and check it out. And this week, I wanted to bring on a powerhouse who knows all about launching because she lives and breathes promotions with her hubby as part of Content Bistro. My friend Prema Malik is a certified conversion copywriter and genius launch strategist who writes sales pages and emails for some big clients. And like me, Prerna has a client side and a student side. And she's also obsessed, just like me, with what's working now in terms of promotions. She's on the front lines and she knows her stuff. I messaged her on Insta and I said, hey, bottom line, I want you to come on, talk to us about the difference makers in selling our courses. I want what's really converting right now. This is top of mind for me right now, the difference makers, how you can launch with success, because I've been planning out my launch architect, which I mentioned last week, where I'm working with a small group to help you promote your course or your workshop or whatever you want to put out in the fall. So if you're feeling stressed out about planning out your launch, or if you're feeling a bit of overwhelm and you want to know how to plan without all that stress, think about checking out the Launch Architect. Think about joining me and this small accountability group. It's an 8-week coaching program, and we work on one outcome: to get your course launched by the fall or the early winter. If you're interested in learning more about the Launch Architect, I'll share more information in the show notes. And in the meanwhile, let's get to Prerna's interview because it's so good, and I want you to listen in and learn. Prerna, welcome to the podcast. I've been wanting to have you on. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. And I know we've been chatting back and forth about this. So I'm really excited to be here and just chat with you and talk about everything that's happening in the course creation world.
Amazing. And I just want to dive in with you because you are so smart and you have so many amazing insights. What do you think is the biggest difference maker or makers when it comes to selling our courses?
Wow. All right. So how much time do we have?
Because I know. I know. I'm just going to start with the big question from the onset.
So many things. Like, courses have been around a long time now. And last year was probably there was a whole course explosion thing. I don't have exact numbers, but
yes,
we all know that COVID caused a lot of people to take their offline businesses online. And, everyone, like from my nutritionist to my yoga instructor, everyone was now, talking about getting on Teachable or Thinkific and creating a course. Courses have definitely become hugely popular, more so now than ever. And which is why I'm so glad that we're having this conversation about difference makers, because everyone's selling the course. So how do you kind of stand out? How do you, how do you create both impact and income without losing sight of who you are, right? I mean, I think that's the other side of things. It's like people are having conversations about wanting to do things differently, but at the same time, you don't want to be leaving money on the table, correct?
Yes, correct.
So keeping all of that in mind, some of the things that we've been testing out with clients at Content Bistro, and also, have kind of seen and know that are working and have measured and tracked, is things like personalization beyond using people's first names. That I feel has been key. So things like video messages, reaching out, like personal reach outs to, say, someone who's attended your webinar, has probably checked out your sales page 4 or 5 times. They're clearly on the fence. They need that support. So you don't want to badger them, but you also want to reach out to them and let them know, hey, I'm here. Or someone from your customer support team can reach out. So these are things that you could almost automate, but at the same time also personalize. So those kind of personal reach outs where they aren't just there for the sake of being there, but also for actually helping people make those decisions that they feel good about, make informed decisions without really, kind of badgering them in the sales conversation. Engaging with people. And not just one of the things that we tested out for our ready to sell launch was like, again, looking at our data. So I'll come to that as well, but you look at your data and you see, all right, so someone's been opening your emails, they've checked out your sales page. These are things that you could easily measure, right? But they're on the fence and they've, and there's something that's holding them back. So, and you know that they follow you on social as well. So you could reach out to them there and connect with and engage with them there and say, okay, hey, I noticed that you checked out ready to sell. And this was this was my exact script. I noticed that you checked out ready to sell, and yes, ConvertKit let me know about this, but I'm just wondering, was it just curiosity or did you have any questions that I can answer for you? And that converted so beautifully because people would say, yes, I have been looking at it and here's what I'm wondering, is it right for me because I'm at ABC stage?
Yeah.
Which was so eye-opening because we've been also sending those emails with every email in the PS, everyone does this, is you say, okay, if you have questions, tap reply and ask me, tap reply and ask me. You're saying that all the time, but no one's really, and that just goes to show like just making that extra step, taking that extra step, making that extra level of engagement happen for your audience goes a long way. So personalizing your outreach during launches is huge. And luckily for us, there are so many tools that now make this happen. The other things that I feel are difference makers and that we've kind of tested out is a shift from claim marketing to result focused talk, not such marketing so much, but you're focusing on results rather than just the claims that this can help you do this, but instead showing them typical results rather than atypical results. Also talking more about course completion rather than the number of students in a course. You may have 3,000 students, but how many of them are actually completing the course? Exactly. Right. And you've talked about this, as well in that amazing growth expert session that you did for us in Ready to Sell. So I feel it's so important for course creators to kind of stand out with that. Like, this is a course that people actually finish. So that gives your audience the confidence that, yes, it's not going to be just another course that I invest in and then it dies a natural death in my computer's archives, but it's one that I could actually implement and use and see it work. The other thing that I feel is social proof. And I like to say social proof serves 6 different ways. So don't just use testimonials on on the sales page, but think about how would your audience really want to use that social proof. So yes, testimonials and case studies are great, but how could you be better using them to encourage your audience to not just buy into your program, but also buy into the fact that they would be able to do this for themselves, be able to, so they can relate to it on a deeper, more, almost a more emotional level. So a few things that you could, and a lot of course creators I see, not a lot of, a few course creators I see are doing it. And when we've tested these techniques out with our clients, they've converted exceptionally well. So something like giving downloadable case studies, letting people download those case studies, and they're like well-written PDF case studies, but have calls to action then to go ahead and enroll. So it's all and it all kind of ties in with an idea that I've been talking about and sharing in Ready to Sell, which is developing your Ecourse system rather than just creating a standalone course. So even if you just have one course, how does everything that you do tie into that without it being, sell all the time? So if you have downloadable case studies, or if you have a wall of proof, this is something that I've seen quite a few course creators do now, is like have a wall of proof. Again, you have testimonials sorted into different categories or different industries or different backgrounds. And then, you have the call to action to join your course as well. Things like contact a student, have it, and again, I know we've chatted about this as well,
Yeah.
but making it easy for people to contact, a handful of your alumni who would be able to speak to them, and help them give, clear insights on whether or not that course is a great way for them to move forward. And again, this doesn't have to do with just business or marketing courses. This is true for any course. You could be in health and wellness. You could be in, personal development. You could be teaching gardening. I know, like, if I were to take a course in gardening, I would love to be able to talk to someone who's had experience killing plants, so I would know that, okay, this would work for me. So
Yeah.
um,
I hear you.
This is amazing. Can we unpack some of these a little bit? So, okay. So let's go back. I knew you're going to be awesome. Let's just put it out there right now. Let's start with the personalization. And I love how you're sending a DM, and I love that you gave us a script, Prerna, that says like, and just admitting these are metrics I'm seeing because of ConvertKit, Active Campaign, or whatever. Is it curiosity, or is it because I have found that people they want to know if it's going to work for them, and they want to have that last step, that last touch point with you, because they've read the marketing, they've read the emails, they've seen the lives, or they've heard the podcast, but is it going to work for me? Right? And they just have that final question. That's what I realized throughout my campaigns. And do you recommend that? I know you're a big fan of segmenting and tracking our emails, also sending personal messages via email, or do you only use social media? How far do you segment?
Yeah. So we did both. And again, this is not just for my launch. I'm speaking specifically to my launch, but we've done this also with other launches. So definitely segment. And we did send out those personal emails, like text only emails, which is like, hey, I noticed you checked out the sales page. Is there something that, I can answer for you? That's it, and it was like a plain text email sent from my, I hooked up my personal Gmail ID to ConvertKit, so you can easily do that and send it out. But then there were people that I know who opened that email as well, and then, so I knew that they were extremely engaged. They were really interested. And those are the ones that I reached out to on social. So the segmentation starts with looking at people who registered for your webinar, people who attended your webinar, people who checked out your sales page, and then, and they're still on the fence. So you want to send them that personal reach out email. And then if, say they open it, then maybe just kind of casually follow up on social. That again, you wouldn't be connected with everybody on social. So it's also, we had someone on our team just kind of go through the list and see, all right, so these are like the 10, 15 people that we are connected with on social. Let's just reach out to them. Then you do a next scrub. Okay, these are another 10, 15 people. So there is a bit of manual work involved, but it totally pays off, because again, I feel, and this is the other thing I feel like, which would be a difference maker, is what's your brand? Like, what's your brand all about, and how are you using your brand values to kind of stand out? So our brand personally is very high touch. It is, and that's like feedback for all our courses as well.
So mine, right? Of course.
Exactly. Yeah. People love the fact that they get us. It's not just going to be like, it's not going to be a moderator or another, or someone else talking to them. It's us. So it just ties in really well with our brand as well, is to kind of make those personal reach outs and maybe just go the extra mile. Is it more time consuming? Yes. Would you want to do this if you had, say, 200,000 people on your list? I would say yes. You would need more hands on deck.
Help, right? And
exactly.
That's where the alumni would come in, like you mentioned before. Yeah.
And I was just talking to a client about this, about having ambassadors on your webinar. We talked about ambassadors, right? When I presented to your amazing group, and then just inviting past students to be in there, and they can share their experiences, or they can just be in chat. And it's not a marketing ploy. It's just they're happy to be there. They're happy to share. Once you've built up ambassadors for your brand, they just want to shout from the rooftops about you. So why not use them, right? In a great way, employ them in a great way. So I think, to your point, the social, that's another great way to use the social proof aspect.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why I say, like, social proof doesn't just limited to putting testimonials on a sales page and your emails. Yes, that's great. But people consume information differently, and they need those multiple touch points and reminders to like kind of just assess whether or not this program is going to be right for them. And as course creators, as creative entrepreneurs, it's our job to help our audience make decisions they actually feel good about, that they're excited about, because then that also ties in with your course completion, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel it's all kind of connected.
So I want to talk about the downloadable case studies for a second, because I love this idea. You suggest it, I'm guessing, further down in the funnel, right? Like as a piece, like you're about to close them, you're about to get them off the fence. Is that right? Where would you bring it into the launch and when you're nurturing the student?
Yeah, great idea. So most funnels would have, say, a testimonial or a case study email, which is great, and a lot of people will read it. But what about people who like to kind of go through information at their own pace? So the first place that I've introduced it in the past has been in the testimonial email itself, where I let people know, hey, do you want to read this save this and read this later? So, you give them a link, it gives them a PDF that they can download. The other is to kind of then include it when you're talking about things like like emails beyond that, where you're saying, okay, in the PS, did you read about ABC's story? Link to the case study PDF.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
So that kind of a thing. And in fact, and this is something that I will be testing out, is where I want to just create like Google Doc testimonials, and so they can open it up and it creates like a copy for them, and they can like read it at their own pace. I haven't tested it out. It's an idea that I definitely will be testing out, and if anyone on your podcast wants to go ahead and test it out, I'd love to know what they.
Because are you thinking less friction than them downloading the PDF?
Exactly, less friction.
Okay. All right, we're gonna try it out. If you're listening right now, try it out and then hit us up on Insta and let us know. Yeah.
No, I love it, and I love that what I'm hearing is you're constantly testing things, right? You're always trying new things, and how much do you bring in the new versus use the old proven stuff? Like how do you know that mix?
Yeah, that's a really good thing. And that was, in fact, one of the difference makers that I had lined up for us for this conversation as well, is, and I just talked about it, is when you do a launch, and say you see, okay, and you do a debrief. So one of the things that I've realized is that you need to do debriefs right. So not just focus on what worked really well, but what could be better. And also what was our audience telling us on the ground, or what were they not telling us? Yeah. So one of the things that I broke down in my most recent post on the blog is, looking at the 3Ds, which is like data, details, and depth. So you want to look at the data, which is, of course, the heat maps, your click-through rates, all of that, the conversion numbers, the user recordings. You look at all of that to kind of inform your decisions. Okay, so people were opening these kind of emails, and so yes, what's working. Mm-hmm. But then you also want to look at details, like, okay, so things like, was our messaging in line with our brand values, or has our brand values have they shifted slightly because of, as the business has grown, are we reflecting that? So you also want to look at what could be better, and what probably your audience hasn't told you, but you and your team can kind of look at and evaluate. So when it comes to looking at what you should keep versus what you should change, things that didn't work, you definitely want to look at, rework those. But even with things that did work, how could you make them better? Yeah. How could you, so for instance, just to give you the same social proof example, testimonial emails work, they do.
Yes.
But how can we make them better? That is what led to this conversation, because we wanted the brand to be, again, when we tested this out, we tested it out with a client whose brand had evolved into being more, showcasing more diversity, into showcasing more accessibility. And we wanted that to. So how do we do that? We do that by giving people different ways to consume content, even including things like the testimonial or the curriculum, for that matter. We've in the past, we've done emails where instead of just laying out the modules in an email, or yes, they're on the sales page, we've also given people the option of being able to download the curriculum.
Okay.
Just that, just like they would for, say, any other university or college that they would enroll. So you have that beautifully designed PDF that walks you through everything that you'll be learning. It's also got, a little bit of social proof in strategic places. And then of course it has calls to action to enroll for the program. So in terms of what you want to keep and what you want to leave, it all boils down to what kind of details are you looking at? What is your audience telling you? What is it that you want your audience to know about you via this launch or via this program that you're selling? How would you, again, talking about the high touch thing, that's something we want our audience to know right off the bat. We don't want to keep it just when they join the course. We want them to know that this is going to be a high touch thing, like that's what our business is about, even during launch mode. So
wow,
that's how you would kind of evaluate what to keep and what to.
What about the D? What about with the last D, depth?
Oh yeah, depth. That's a good thing. Depth is essentially, I feel it ensures that you show your audience how you actually care, that you're listening to them, that you're putting where money where your mouth is. For instance, the most recent example I could give you is last year. So there were clients who'd hired me in the past to write their sales copy and sales page. But when COVID hit and people were losing their jobs and all, they hired me again to rework their copy so that it was relevant and recent.
Okay.
So that it did not have any tone deaf or inappropriate references, and that it was in line. So depth is where you kind of keep pace with what's happening in the world, and how that impacts your audience. So if you were talking to, say, 9-to-5ers, maybe a lot of them lost their jobs.
Right.
How could you, go through your copy? Maybe you need to make no changes, but maybe you need to look at your emails, look at your sales page, look at your, your overall messaging to see, am I being insensitive anywhere? So it just shows your audience. Depth is just going deep in showing your audience that you're responsive, not just in terms of, the customer communication part of it, but you're responsive with even your content. You're responsive with your copy. You're responsive with how you're showing up in the world, and you're keeping things relevant and recent, and using that recency factor intelligently.
Yes, I love all of this. And I love the fact that I'm always talking about building on success, and the fact that you looking at what's working, what worked really well, and saying, how can we make this even better, right? Like play up your strengths even more. I think that's incredible. And I think that's a question that we should be asking ourselves. And I love this depth question. How are we staying relevant, especially in what we do? Right, Prerna? Like everything's changing so fast as the environment changes. Things are opening back up. They're closing down. How are we keeping in touch with that and have the right tone in the messaging? I that's great. I think we all need to consider that. I could talk to you for hours, and I know it's early over there. I do want to get to this point. I've talked you up about your recovery. And I feel like you are a great spokeswoman for not getting burnt out in our entrepreneurial businesses. Can you talk about your recovery process and how you avoid burnout?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Burnout is a very real thing. I dealt with my own experience of burnout quite a few years ago, and it was rough. And that is when, Mayank and we work in our business together, and we were very intentional about the fact, this is not going to happen again. So how do we ensure that while also ensuring that our business continues to grow the way we want it to grow? For us, Gina, quite honestly, till last year, till before the world shut down, it used to be, we used to like plan 4 vacations a year. So we knew like every quarter we would have a vacation, and, traveling is our family's, it's our family's thing. It's
I love
travel
that.
and exploring the world is one of our family values. So that used to really help. The other thing is, so now this year, like when, of course, when especially last year when we could travel nowhere, it became more important for us to focus on the other element that's involved in when you're kind of looking at how to stay focused and sane and not burn out, is things like capacity planning and project planning. So you're not just, just taking on work. It's so easy because both you and I, we've worked with clients and we also have courses, right?
Yep.
So it becomes so easy to say yes, without kind of, because these are incredible clients that you're working with, and you definitely don't want to say no, but at the same time, you don't want to end up burning yourself out. So just kind of looking at how are we placed, how many clients can we take, who do we need to bring on our team to take some of the workload off. Those were things that, that make a huge difference. So for us, for instance, currently we look at, I work with 2 clients at the most at a time.
Yep.
Sometimes it's just one client, depending on the scope of project. If it's like a really big project and needs a lot of me, also including, like we brought on more team members. So things like social media didn't really need me there. So we have a social media person. I have support with the research part of writing copy. So we have a research assistant. We have someone to help with, we have a graphic designer. So all of those things, so I can then just focus on writing. So kind of just being intentional about who you need to hire, because I see this a lot online, is people hire a VA because that's what everybody else is doing.
Right.
A
Or
VA
that's
was
what they
not
think they should do.
exactly.
Oh, I've
Yeah,
been told to
VA
hire a
was,
VA, so I guess I
yeah,
should go do that.
yeah. So a VA, full disclosure, a VA was not our first hire. An editor
It wasn't
was
my
our
first hire. Right. A
Yeah.
content writer was my first hire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For us, it was an editor because I was spending way too much time editing my copy, and I was still too close to it. I used to miss things. So it made more sense for us to bring on a full-time editor instead
That's
of a
great.
full-time VA, And yes, we now have a VA, but just I'd love for people to kind of look at things and look at their business and look at what they need support with when they're kind of planning the project, because you could have a VA and still be badly burned out, because
Yes, absolutely. Right.
also in terms of recovery, I feel like you need to factor in regular downtime. That's been a challenge specifically for me, more so than Mayank, because I'm type A. I'm very driven, very ambitious.
I feel like you're so good at that. I feel like you're always posting about
yes,
wonderful places that you're visiting, and
that is what. Yes.
Yes, I feel like you are inspirational. I think you're not giving yourself enough credit.
No, but I've been very intentional about it. And that is something I want people to know, is like, it's okay to be driven and ambitious, and at the same time, be comfortable with taking time off.
Hell yes.
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 So so I feel that is so important. You don't have to be one or the other. You can be both. So for me, it means, I like taking time off, and I like taking this year. It's been a lot about staycations, especially since hotels have opened up. So we've done a lot of staycations, and you'll see that on our Instagram feed all the time. So we do, we do a lot of that. We do a lot of just kind of, I like take days off. Sometimes I would work Saturday, Sunday, because that's what I want to do. But then I'll take Wednesdays and Thursdays off. That's the other thing.
I do that too. Yeah. I'll take Friday off, or Thursday or Friday. And then I want to work Sunday. I do that. Yes.
Yeah. So you need to get comfortable with that, because honestly, I feel like so much of productivity advice, again, is very cookie cutter, and so don't work weekends. Yes, don't work weekends, as long as you are, then making sure that your work week is planned well. For us, that means we shut down work in the afternoons. In fact, I was just reviewing my Toggle track. I track my time. I'm obsessive about time tracking. That's another thing I would really recommend you do, is track your time. So I was just reviewing my Toggle track, and like an average, I work around say 20 hours, 25 hours max. There are weeks when that's more, but
Right.
that's like our average. And that's what our capacity planning is for, is like we plan for these many hours of work. So when you start being more intentional about it, it just kind of makes it easier for you to say no, and also for you to say, yes, I can do it at this time. So, and I found that clients love that,
Yeah.
like for instance,
They appreciate that.
exactly. I've booked in amazing clients for September. I've booked in amazing clients for October. And so people are willing to wait as long as you let them know, and you let them know that, this is why I'm doing it. So all my clients now know that I only work with 1 or 2 clients at a time to be able to give them the kind of attention that they truly deserve. So I feel like these are a few things that work really, really well. And and it also, oh yeah, most importantly, please take your life season into account. A lot of the things that I'm
Tell me
able
more
to do
about
now,
that.
yeah, the things that I'm able to do now, for instance, just take whatever day off, or just take travel or go for staycations. And those were very hard for us to do way back when we were kind of starting out.
Right.
For one, we'd started out with pretty much, we'd eaten up all our savings dealing with illness and a lack of a full-time job. So we did not have the funds to be able to travel the way we wanted to. But we could make time for other things, so you could do things like maybe read more or connect with people more, or which are things you should be doing in any case. But then if you can't travel, what else can you do? If you can't, you need to kind of start thinking about your season of life. When our daughter was really young, for instance, because we started our business when she was around 2 years old. So it just meant kind of working with a different schedule, right?
Right.
Like working around
Yes.
naps, so you need to kind of take those things into account again, instead of looking at what does self-care look, for ABC.
Right.
That
What makes
works
sense for
great.
you? Right. In this season,
Exactly.
what's appropriate for you?
Yeah.
I agree.
If you're dealing with chronic illness, that's something that we personally deal with a lot. So when we have flare-ups, it means there's more downtime than ever, and that means you need to kind of then let people know in your programs and everywhere else that, hey, I'm not going to be as responsive as I am. So you need to take your season of life into account to create a self-care plan that's sustainable and works well for you, and just use these as ideas to kind of springboard off on, but not just this is not the gospel truth. Like travel is what energizes us. It may not be the same for you. You may find travel exhausting, which is okay. So
right. People might not be into that. Right. Yes.
Yeah.
But whatever works for you, it's your recovery process, right?
Yeah.
This has been absolutely wonderful, Prerna. I can't wait till you could come to San Diego and we can eat some really good food. Until that comes, where can listeners find you to get incredible tips for sales pages, marketing better, like not getting burnt out tips, all these kind of things? Where they can learn more?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I would love to connect with your listeners either on Instagram. So if you're listening to the podcast, take a screenshot and tag me at Content Bistro. I would love to shout you out and connect with you and know more about your business, or check out our website, which is contentbistro.com.
Awesome. Please check out Prerna. She's amazing. I mean, this is just a small sample of how brilliant she is. Thank you so much. Thanks for being on.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Gina.
Okay, so much to take in. How much do you love Prerna? She is so smart, so insightful. What are you going to do first? Personalize your promotion, look at your results-based marketing, work on your social proof. Drop me a line on Insta at Course Creation Boutique to tell me how you're going to go and take action. And of course, make sure to look up Prerna at contentbistro.com. Now, if you want to promote your course in the fall, I'm going to be working on a lot of those pieces that Prerna mentions in our interview. Think about checking out The Architect and working with me in a small group dedicated to your promo success. I'll see you next week, where you and I will continue to take the intimidation factor out of launching as part of our series. Please rate and review this episode and then subscribe. Until next week, go create, be you and be brilliant, and get it done.